Hey, my name is Damala Asafa, and this is the Hear Me, Follow Him podcast. It's a podcast that I want you to hear what I'm saying and hear what the guests are saying, but ultimately it's about following Him. So, again, this is the Hear Me, Follow Him podcast. And I have some old episodes from last year. Go check those out. A lot of it's about the time that we're in now. When Jesus was born, we celebrate Christmas all the way to his crucifixion, which we call Easter. So check those out. So in this new iteration, this new year, I'm 42, not 41. I'm turning to an old man. Like sometimes I look in the camera, I see those grays. I'm like, holy smokes. Like a lot changes in the course of a year. I'm actually expecting a new child, my fifth daughter. Congratulations. Thank God for that. I mean, she's strong and healthy in the womb right now. We'll be here around March or April. I mean, my daughter, 18 years old, she's grown up, hit the real life. I got other kids in school. So I really meant to keep this podcast going. But, you know, as life happens, we all have our excuses, blah, blah, blah. But aside from that, we're back. And so here's the Hear Me, Follow Him podcast. Thanking God every day that we have the ability to be able to share. So without further ado, this new episode that I got into, I was sitting around thinking about the past. When you hit the 40s, you do kind of hit what they call the midlife crisis. Like you just start to think, you know, like, is this the middle of the road? Let me take a little scorecard on my life, yada, 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 yada. So I was going back to, because in today's life, I'm 49, I'm 42, like I said. I love me some Jesus. It's really how I try to pattern my life. It's not perfect. It might not look good to others, but I know the intent of my heart and where it's trying to go. I am trying to follow Jesus with all I am. But I was thinking, like, why weren't you doing this when you were young? My mother would take us to church, but it was an older church, St. John's United Methodist Church in South Ashland. And they didn't have a youth group. And funny enough, I didn't even know what a youth group was. Like, I learned about youth groups when I was older in life. But before we get to that, I started thinking, like, okay, if you didn't know about a youth group, were these kids in youth group? And I thought, man, I'm going to get a hold of one of my dogs, one of my best friends growing up. And he's still, I consider him a good friend today, because I don't do the whole best friend type. But he's a good man. I consider him a good friend today. We really haven't spoken intimately or really close in decades. But, man, I have a feeling if I picked up the phone and I really needed him, I might have to ask him twice for he to come through. But if he called me, I'd be there on the first call. Know that. So I asked him, because we hung out a lot. I was like, man, was you in a youth group? And he's like, yeah, I was in a youth group. So I told him to share that experience with me. So without further ado, I'm going to drop you my guy, Clifton Cooper. And here's his experience of what he says about a youth group.
Okay, so the question is, if I was in a youth group, which I was, how did you deal with, and I love the way this is worded, how did you interact, not deal, how did you interact with unchurched kids at school, sports, work, whatever? Did the group feel exclusive or inclusive? And, you know, how was it interacting with those kids? Now, so let's just go ahead and say, we'll start at, I just love the way the question's worded though. All right, so we're going to start with the fact that I didn't start purposely going to church in a physical church building until I was 16. Okay. Second, I went to the greatest church, Dunbar First Baptist Church on 17th Street in Dunbar, West Virginia. So those are out of the way, all right? Now, how did I start going to this church? I started going because one of the guys I played baseball with, Mr. Fix, invited me to go to church and to go specifically to the church camp that was about to take place. We were leaving for a week, and I had like 12 hours to get some money, get an answer, and get with them to go to church camp. That's how I was introduced to this church. Now, before going to church, I would always watch church at home on TV, listening to or watching Dr. Charles Stanley. So that went on for years because I always enjoyed listening to Charles Stanley. He just had a great way of delivering the message that was actively coming from the book. So that was important to me because I used to read the Bible all the time, mainly New Testament. I don't rock with the Old Testament, just being honest. So, and I can give you lots of reasons. That can be a whole different discussion another day. But when it comes to the New Testament, I'm heavily invested. Okay, so once I started going to Dunbar First Baptist, the greatest church in the state of West Virginia, at least back then. We're talking late 90s, 96, 97, 98, 99, okay? Now, when I started going there, anybody went there. And I'm saying that from the perspective of, I know I went to this church to kick it with my friends. Now, I went to church all the time. Once I started going, I was there. They had Saturday service sometimes, just very random. But sometimes there were 3 services on Sunday, all 3, okay? Tuesday, there was Bible study. Wednesday, there was youth group. I'm in for all of it, okay? Heavily invested. And the best part was people were coming from everywhere, like all the surrounding little cities. So Dunbar, South Charleston, St. Albans, Nitro. Now, again, I said, I'm going to hang out with my friends because everybody was going. So there was never a point of non-churched, non-religious, because people who were not believers were going to this church. People who were actively doing everything against the church beliefs and teachings were going to this church. And everybody was welcome. There was never a point where the problem kids or, the known badass was not invited back to the church every week for everything. So now there were probably people who wanted to come to our church, just didn't live in the area, it wouldn't have been convenient. I just know that everybody that went loved it. So now we would do all kinds of activities, so first off, the basketball team, 3 years in a row, Church League basketball champions, okay? If you're watching this and you remember, you know we were the truth. We went one season losing one game and beat that team in the championship. Like spanked them. So basketball was a thing. We'd have the typical youth group games. We'd have like free range of the church. So we'd go hang out, do the youth stuff, but who knows where people were disappearing to in this church. It was just a lot of fun. Now, to give credit, the youth pastor at the time, he was cool. The preacher was cool. Now, I have, as an adult, come to learn that some of those, the youth pastors, or one of the youth pastors, he wasn't quite as accepting as our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ would like one to be. And once I learned that as an adult, it really hurt a part of me inside, thinking back to my childhood or teenage years, because they were always in the book. They were always talking about, what would Jesus do? That was that time of our life where WWJD were on bracelets, t-shirts, everything. It was everywhere. And, to come and find out that this person who was teaching our youth group, he didn't practice that, because once someone didn't fit the church mold and he moved that person right on out of their life, man, that opens your eyes a whole lot to the reality of some of these preachers. But nonetheless, let's get back to the subject. At school, We didn't talk about church. Everybody who went to church went to the same school for the most part. Like I said, there were some surrounding schools, but I didn't see those people outside of church unless it was a football game, a basketball game, something like that. So I don't know what was going on there, but at our school, everybody was with everybody all the time. Now, there could be a group of people that like wasn't, I don't know, just weren't cool with the people that went to, but like if you go down the list, and Damala, you know all the people, everybody went to this church. I don't know why you didn't. You like the only one who didn't get in with it and come to this church. But Hodge was there, all the girls from Dunbar, lots of girls from St. Albans. I think even Mal went every now and then. Like, obviously Sean, Fix, that whole crew. It was just like the norm. And we never thought about people who were not going to church as people who were not churchgoers, not believers. I ain't gonna lie, it's none of my business. I could care less if some other kid does not want to come to church. Because of, so it don't mean they're not reading the Bible. It doesn't mean they're not a believer. I don't care if they're a believer or not. Honestly, what if they're a Muslim? What if they're a Buddhist? I didn't care. And I never was one to buy into, oh, you're not a Christian, so you're going to hell. So I guess you could say it didn't matter. But I guess that answers your question as well. Our church was the greatest. We have fun. We went on concerts. We went to like pool events, summer retreats, everything. There's nothing we didn't do that wasn't a good time. And even when it was corny, it was cool. Because if nothing else, we had that church league basketball team and we was dominating year after year after year. So hope that answers your question. If there's anything that's come from this that you want some more insight, details, or follow-up, let me know. But yeah, all the cool kids went to my church, and that's just hopefully Dunbar First Baptist is still rocking hard. Last time I went, I think I was in my mid-20s, late 20s. I had taken my wife there because I wanted her to meet one of the preachers, and they weren't there anymore. So that's the last time I went, and I'm pretty sure I'll never go again, but hopefully they getting down. So that's it. Talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for that, Coop. That was real insightful, you know. I threw that question at you as a shot in the dark. I didn't know whether you're in a youth group or not. But I mean, there's a lot to unpack, and hopefully we can get him back for a different episode to talk more about that. Are you down with that, Coop? I hope so, because you said a lot of really insightful things. One thing that I jump on that you said is you were invited. As much as we hear that, right? It's just so simple. Like, I was invited. When you invite somebody, it means that you think they're special enough and they come. So shout out to homeboy, I think you said Jeremy Fix, who invited you for you to come to the youth group. And that's one reason why I didn't come to a youth group. Believe it or not, I didn't know they existed. Nobody that I was around after 9th grade. And really went to youth group. So it was a whole different world of experience. You did touch on something that I think is beautiful. Just because you didn't go to a youth group or a church does not mean that you're not religious or know God. Because in encounters that I had in life, aside from youth groups, and of course I've been to a few churches, I really did find God in meeting and talking with certain people. So yeah, but a youth group is good. I'll diverge more in a future episode too about how it was living without a youth group and what I thought about the kids who were in youth group as I had interactions with them growing up. One more thing that you said that I really did that I did really key in on. You was like, where was you, Damala? You know all these people. So where in the world were you? Something happened in 9th grade. I can't really explain it, but it's like I got canceled from school. I attended school every day, but I was in a little section away from everybody else. Like I had COVID or something back then. So that's what happened, man. But trust me, if I would have got invited, I would have came. But a piece of advice to any youth who might hear this, or any parents who hear this: encourage your kids to join a youth group, because those same kids who are in a youth group become their friends and they're going to school with them. And if they're surrounded by that positive Christian attitude, that's part of training up a child too. As I said, I did not have that. And I was trained up in some ways that, holy smokes, I'll share with you. And I'm sure some of you guys can attest to this, because I lived this life with some of you guys, or anywhere that you're at. You were trained up in a different way. A youth group is an excellent place to get trained up in the way of the Lord and to see how other people maneuver, because it's not all sheep. There are also wolves there. But learning and having that foundation at a young age can be very pivotal. My name is Damala Asafa. I always love to end it with this: hear me, hear Coop, hear all of that. But at the end of it, always follow him, because he is the author and perfecter of our faith. Hey, check this thing out. It's going to be on YouTube, on all your favorite streaming platforms, should I say, your Spotify's, Apple Podcasts. Hey, let me know. Put it in the comment section. Should I have Coop come back on and dive down deeper? And actually, yeah, we could dive down deeper into where, like, we were best friends in a way. I was at his house every day for like a year and a half, 2 years strong. And you know how life is. But we can dive into kind of how our different journeys in religious faith kind of led us up to where we are today, or just really have a conversation to see where it goes. But hey, I appreciate you guys. I love each and every one of y'all. Subscribe if you can and hear some of this heat that's coming out. If you want to be a guest or just have anything that you want to say, come on, this microphone's always open to you, because I want them to hear you as well. But at the end of the day, let's remember, we follow him. Thank you.